uh, posterity's sake. Um, but yeah, first of all, yeah, I just want to say welcome to our second ever micro session of the year. It's a new type of like event series that we've just begun. And it's so nice to see some of the some of the new and old faces on the call. For those who don't know me, my name is Muigai, and I'm the ecosystem lead at the Jobtech Alliance. Um, but first of all, I just want to introduce like the micro sessions. Like, what are these micro sessions that we are trying to do? So I think the easiest way to think of them is that they are the opposite of a long and heavy webinar, right? I think we've all been in those webinars where it's dragged and dragged. So we're really trying to create like bite-size, sort of like 30-minute deep dives into some of the frontier challenges that the JobTech founders are wrestling with. And the desire or the desired outcome for this is to leave you with at least one idea that you can test out tomorrow. So keeping them very short, but also practical, right? And how it works is, we'll be inviting our speaker to run us through the material for about, let's say 30 minutes, and then we'll take some questions, but obviously prioritizing some of the questions that were submitted during the registration or also in the chat. So please make use of the chat feature as much as possible. We'll be trying to end in about 30 minutes or so, but the idea is like if you feel like you have questions beyond the 30, 35 minutes that we'll have together, then you feel free to linger around and we can get to them. So I hope that just gives you a bit of a breakdown of what the session entails. And since time is of the essence, I'm just going to invite Nick, who's our resident AI whiz, like that's what I like to call him, who will be taking us through the session. So thank you, and over to you, Nick.
Thanks, okay. Just give me a quick sec, gents, and I will share my screen. I don't know why it's not. Ugh. Sorry, it's always technical challenges to get us started, but we'll figure it out. All right, sorry. I don't know where it's all gone. Apologies for that. So for those of you that don't know me, my name is Nick. I'm based here in Nairobi in Kenya, the investment lead at the Jobtech Alliance, and also look after the venture building team that we work with our portfolio companies. Given myself the title of the AI lead, it's self-appointed. Just purely ego-based. No, I've been working at the intersection of AI and work for a long time, and this is a real passion of mine. It's something that's too critically important for me not to invest my time understanding and learning as much of it as I possibly can. And so as a result, I kind of have started to spend a bit of my work week every week trying to figure out a little bit more on where work is going on the continent and how we can best set up platforms in the job tech ecosystem for future success. So I'm going to try and do a brief, like pretty quick run through of some generative AI stuff. We're going to look at the current state of Gen AI, look at some founder implications, and then I'm going to try and introduce a couple of very easy frameworks for founders in the room to explore like what a job really is. And I think this will help shape how you start thinking about one hiring internally, but also when you're designing and building job tech platforms for work as well. I want to take a macro look at how AI is actually reshaping work at a global level as well. Some kind of scare tactics thrown in for fun. Um, and then I'm going to contextualize it all back to what I'm calling a workflow vacuum on the continent as well. The then bit will be some of our learnings and experience from working in this space and how some platforms and founders can build AI as a superpower as well. I'm not going to check chat really until the end. And even though I'm a little bit passionate about technology, I also don't want to kind of it to get in the way. I'm also going to do a quick demo as well, which will be fun. A live demo, which never works, but we'll give it our best shot as well. Cool. So I don't know how many of you have ever watched the movie Margin Call. It's about the 2008 housing crisis, one of my favorite movies of all time. And in this scene, it's the CEO, it's played here by Jeremy Irons, um, one of the best 10 minutes kind of pieces of cinema I think exist. And he's being briefed about the collapse of the housing market. And he goes on about this rant of, do you want to know why I sit in the big chair, why I'm paid the big bucks? And it's for him to tell when the music is going to stop. And he, in relation to hearing about the housing crisis and the mortgage crisis going on in America, he can't hear a thing, and he comes out and saying like this is it, and it's his belief, and they're one of the only two firms that actually survived the housing collapse. And for me, the reason I'm bringing this in is I think it's an apt analogy into where the future of work is going with AI and its impact on labor markets. I think where we're standing today is the critical point for job displacement, for being able to redesign how our platforms work. By nature, of course, I am, you know, an accelerationist. I'm a firm believer in technology, but I am pessimistic about labor on the continent as well. It's partly why I decided to join the Jobtech Alliance a year and a half ago, believing in the impact of the work that we can do, and the critical nature of getting these things right as well. So for any of those kind of, some of this stuff may be foundational to some on the call, but I just want to really start. It's very simple. There's different types of AI. AI is a very general term, and the simplest way of explaining it is machines simulating human intelligence. You got then domain-specific AI, which is narrow and specialized, like spotting tumors, for example, or supply chain AI. But then you've got generative AI, which is much more broad, adaptive, predicting patterns. It can help with creating new text, code, strategy, all sorts of things. And I think that's where I'm particularly more interested in its role for job tech platforms as well. And every 10 or 15 years, over the last 50 years, you've seen this platform shift in technology, reshaping the tech industry. And if the models do kind of keep on scaling, the change actually could be exponentially bigger. It's where I believe the world is going. And I think it's something founders really need to start paying attention to as well. But of course, on the other hand, the models are just commodities. We constantly see these benchmarking reports coming out of every week. Grok starts to beat OpenAI in one measure of being the world's best mathematician or physicist or this. The next week, it's Manus, or the next week, it's ChatGPT back on top of the throne. And as a result, they're becoming commodities. And I think it's something important when we look at building and integrating AI into our platforms as well. So I think it creates really a founder's dilemma. It's my belief that job tech platforms that are going to survive in the next 5 years will be those that integrate AI as part of their infrastructure on their platform. It's not just a feature or a nice little experiment to have. You're going to start seeing AI native competitors spinning up in weeks. Users kind of switching friction will become near zero. And I think my message to you all on the call is velocity with experimentation is going to be the new mode. Distribution is going to be key. But again, let's start thinking of AI as infrastructure as well. There's a couple of very early kind of founder lessons that I wanted to share, but like from the model, it's way too early to pick a winner when you're considering an AI build, whether it's the model or a tool. Any AI design or solution needs to be flexible to adapt to the rapidly changing innovation landscape. Like these things change on a weekly basis. So building anything based on a single model is incredibly risky. So we should be building modular, using different large language models for different tasks, finding easy ways to swap them in and out when we need it as well. And I think, again, before overcommitting any dev resources, like start validating super early, getting back to MVP stages. And, no or low code tools allow us now to create these kind of POCs within hours, not sometimes even days as well. So there's a couple of really interesting reports that have come out. I've been analyzing basically what has the world been using Gen AI tools today for. It's two big studies, one on Claude, one on ChatGPT, like tens of millions of users analyzing them as well. And I think the core message here is, yes, there's the list here. It's coding, it's writing, it's reasoning, but they're all task-based. All of the use of kind of LLMs and generative AI to date has pretty much been help me with a specific task, whatever that may be. Help me draft this email. Help me do some research. But it is all very much task-based. But what I'm seeing now very much, and I think some of us in the room will tend to agree with this, but the world is very quickly moving from this reactive kind of generative AI use to an agentic world. And for those on the call that don't know what agentic AI, it's AI that can plan and act autonomously. It's able to interact with other agentic AIs, and it's able to really change the use of from tasks into workflows as well. It can do multiple step tasks, and it can interact with other tools as well, all on its own. So I've lost that. You're starting to see these agents for software development. There's Replit, Lovable, Bolt, new ones launching all the time. And I think Microsoft's Satya Nadella said 30% of all code now is written by these kind of AI agents at the entire company. And I believe by the end of next year, it's probably going to be closer to 80%. It has huge implications just for the software engineering landscape as well, when 80% of your code is being written by AI as well. So for those of you, I'm sure there's a couple on this room who've probably tried a couple of these AI agents, but I was also assuming, looking through the list of registrants, that maybe a few hadn't. And I thought it'd be quite a fun and easy thing to do now. And we're going to kind of come back to this. But what I was going to show is the most simple, oh, crikey, still sharing, the most simple prompt in the world. We are going to create a Jobtech platform in the next 10 minutes. It's going to work. It's going to be relatively simple. It's used to illustrate a point, of course. There's plenty more stuff on the back end here. But I just want to do that. So I'm going to go on to Bolt. It's a brilliant platform. I'm going to type it in here into the prompting box. There is a great feature that we can use called Enhance the Prompt, where you can use generative AI built into the Bolt platform to take your simple thoughts, of which I have many, and build a really complex out tech spec document for this thing. It's all doing this super easily. I'm not having to add any nuance or context. And once it's written that, it's got all of it built in. I'm then going to ask it to build. I'll get rid of this. Mine. There we go. Yeah, so what it's done now is it's taken my requirements, it's understanding them, it's thinking about them, and it's going to come back with a functional and a technical spec, which is, typically a process that takes a couple of months when you're building the early stages of your platform. It's then going to start creating the initial files, installing dependencies, creating databases, and all sorts of different things. And we're going to come back to this as a break, so I can take a breath in between a couple of these sessions as well. I'm hoping there's going to be a few errors as well, because I quite enjoy fixing the errors as well. I'm completely non-technical. I can write some awful HTML and CSS, but that's about it. So these are, and I'm just trying to encourage people in the room to really think about how easy it is now to spin up new ideas, to test them, to validate them, and also what that means for the competitive landscape for job tech platforms when, we can be spinning up competitors very, very quickly. Where does the real defensibility come from? Cool. Of course, this is the Jobtech Alliance. It's why we're interested in this space, and there's a number of core reasons. Africa is entering the largest labor market expansion in modern history. Half of all new entrants to the global labor force will be African by 2050. But most of them will not find formal jobs. And we see every year 12 million people graduating, and they're looking for just 2 million formal jobs. So it's a hugely complex and challenging space that we've got to try and find solutions for people to work and to find really high quality, useful work as well. That sadly is coming at a time with this massive AI expansion, which is making it incredibly complex and challenging for all of us on the call as well to be figuring these things out together. But before we kind of dive into a lot of this, I wanted to take a step back and I was explain this really simple framework of thinking about what a job is. And I think it's really useful because it's going to form a bunch of the foundational stuff of how we take on today. When you look at what a job is, in its really simplest form, it's a collection of responsibilities that are broken down into various workflows. So within each of these workflows, you have a number of individual tasks, and once you've completed them all, you get an outcome. It's very, very simple. And what we've seen for the longest time is you've got AI and automation. All these tools over the last 10 years have been AI. They've actually just been focused on solving for those isolated tasks. And therefore the impact on work itself has not been massive. There's been slight kind of productivity benefits, but what we're seeing now with agentic AI is AI can actually automate the entire workflow, can complete these whole end-to-end processes that previously required a human or an employee to do. And I think that shifts the very nature of what a job really is. And so I think, when we're thinking about, as founders in the room, of hiring, hiring for a role is becoming very, very different than what it was 3 years ago. And it raises a lot of challenging questions as well. Put together it's a terrible workflow, but it's a very simple example of an AI demand gen agent. Like working in sales or in BD is very human centric. It requires a lot of manual tasks to complete a workflow to get to an outcome currently in most businesses. But now you're starting to see these amazing agentic AI platforms popping up, working in sales and acting as AI SDRs, where they're doing very, very simple tasks, all put together automatically, but enabling founders and sales teams now to really superpower their platforms. We're seeing platforms like Clay, where when a lead is captured into a CRM, the AI can pass the data, auto-enrich it with external content, can score the lead against your ICP filters, can then segment it automatically. Is it high? Is it medium? Is it low? And then automatically generate personalized outreach to each of these new leads, whether that's taking case studies and slightly tweaking them on the fly without you ever having to have input. And then if you've got medium kind of segmented leads, these you just keep them warm. The AI will send them and add them into an automated drip of content as well. But if they're high leads, it's going to get a call scheduled for you straight away. It's going to draft a briefing note and it's going to auto update the CRM, and it's going to do it all autonomously for you. Which, if you think about it, like if we're trying to scale lead capture and demand generation, like it's a really critical way of giving yourself superpowers or your sales leads superpowers. Some of these tools are expensive. I realize that. These are just a few. There are a lot, and there's always going to be an open source or generally cheaper version. Again, it's very much you get what you pay for, I think. So a lot of this stuff is on a cost analysis of what's going to deliver the most value. If you're doing on the call, if you're doing a lot of B2B sales, like I think you can justify the cost of some of these platforms because the value that they can add in time they can save is incredible as well. So what you're really seeing is this, agentic AI taking over. for me personally, why I'm so interested in this space from like a work and jobs perspective, it's for me the real disruption point now is that's when we've entered the disruption point today is the shift from tasks to workflows. And I think that's why everyone on the call needs to start thinking a little bit differently about the people that they hire and the roles that they have in their organizations, and the tools that they're starting to experiment with as well. Cool. So we can just take a quick breather and go and check in on our friend Bolt. Yeah, and look, it's done already, which is great. It's a super simple version 1. And I'm quite happy it did this as well because it's something I wanted it to do. I've tested this before, so I'm cheating a little bit, but it is built a job tech platform. You're able to filter. I live in Karen. It can filter it in. But you see, like of course, there are errors. Like there's a lot of bias in the AI as well. Like, we're going here, all areas. How many of these are actually African faces on a platform? I asked it to do it in Nairobi, but because the AI has not been trained on a lot of local data, you get these errors. Not to say you can't fix them with a bit of prompting. You can ask it, but like it's just an interesting there. So like I want to book a thing with Michael. There's no reviews. Here is his platform. It's all done this through generative AI. I've not had to have a single input, as you saw. It's got his rates, his ratings, his experience, where he services. And also there's a simple booking form as well, where I can start adding in, you know, all these different types of things, creating a working job tech platform, which is great. I'll flash up another one that has a back end as well, once we kind of get closer to the end. But I'd encourage all of us on the call, take the ideas that we have, whether that's side hustles or feature requests or parts of their platform that they want to experiment with, and start testing these tools out because they're really going to change the very nature of product in job tech platforms as well. Take a little bit of a macro step back, but when we're looking at economic value, which is obviously critical for platforms, but it's always come from scarcity. For the last 50 years or 100 years, we've paid people because things were hard to access, like information or specialized knowledge. That's how we've determined how certain types of career earn more money than others. But with AI, what you've done now is it's making information and routine tasks abundant. So how do you actually now determine scarcity? It's incredibly challenging, and where we think it's going is in 4 core areas, in whether that's in judgment, whether that's trust. How do you build confidence with clients? What's the contextual understanding, any cultural nuances, or the human connection area? And that's effectively where, if I was thinking about the future of work in a company, those are the areas we'd start to try to optimize for, as well. Cool. So this is what this has done in effect, is it's resulted in what's called a squeezing of the middle. What you're seeing with AI's impact is those at the top end of the spectrum, those kind of senior leaders and people with a lot of kind of tacit knowledge, like they're not having the highest, they're not getting impacted by AI very much. But neither of those at the base of the pyramid or those at the kind of the bottom, the AI isn't quite reaching them yet. Where AI is impacting is in the middle, those most threatened white collar work, those that are doing routine digital outputs, those are doing grunt work in knowledge, doing things like paralegal work or due diligence preparation, drafting marketing copy, entry level accounting. A lot of these things are becoming where AI is more than capable of a knowledge worker in this space, which I think makes us start to think very differently about the types of employment and the types of structure we do in our organizations. So I'm trying to be deliberately a little bit dramatic here, but I think we're sleepwalking into a labor market upheaval. It's we're standing right over the edge, and I really like this quote. It's about, we're about to experience a hurricane where the skies are deceptively sunny and the air feels calm, but it's always calm before the storm. Dario Amodi, who's the CEO of Anthropic, the maker of Claude, um, had a really blunt, scary warning. This was 2 months ago. He believes, from his vantage point of a $50 billion company, that AI could wipe out half of all entry-level white-collar jobs and spike unemployment to 10 to 20% in the next 1 to 5 years. It's a significant bit of futurist. It's a bit of kind of doomsayer. But it's valid. Like, he sits on huge amounts of data, whether that's looking at what's happening on Claude, but also unique perspective into hiring and how companies are using some of his tools as well. You think that seeing like a ton of different reports. I'm paid to look at a lot of these reports, so I'm not suggesting we all go out and read all of these, that they're all linked in the end anyway. But McKinsey is saying almost 400 million people are going to have to switch careers because of AI. Goldman Sachs, in their recent AI report, 300 million jobs at risk globally because of AI's impact. 41% of employers are planning job cuts purely because of AI. But I think there's an interesting nuance as well. Like, the IMF's recent kind of Gen AI stuff was saying, yeah, 60% of jobs are at risk of being replaced in advanced economies. But in developing and lower income, countries, which is Africa, it's only going to be 26%. So I think it creates a very different approach to how we look at this as well. But of course, entry-level white-collar workers are first in line. What we're seeing from the data is pretty clear. Big tech hiring for the last 3 years is now 25% slowdown in what they are. So these big tech companies are hiring 25% less graduates already because of generative AI. We're starting to see massive drops in headcount at the early stages. And why I kind of talk about entry-level workers is because what we're calling, for those who know, it's called the canaries in the coal mine. So for those that don't know what the saying is, the back in the day, coal miners used to take a canary into the coal mine to detect for natural gas leaks, make it unsafe for them to be down there. So when the canary, it was the early warning sign. And I believe that youth employment data is the early warning sign for labor markets in the next kind of 3 to 5 years as well. This is a fantastic report. It's probably my top one that I'd recommend anyone interested in the very macro side of this of the data on employment with AI. But what you're seeing is young workers being hit the hardest. The older peers actually holding steady. Any adjustments we're seeing in labor markets is actually felt through jobs rather than wages as well. So on the other hand, we're starting to see the very first cracks are starting to appear, and the markets are taking notice. From January to early June of this year, 80,000 tech job losses were directly linked with AI. You're seeing Microsoft cutting 9,000 jobs, IBM, Salesforce, Microsoft again, BT in the UK, Fiverr, CEO Andy Jassy from Amazon. Like, there's a significant amount of press that's starting to come. And of course, there's way more in the back end. No company wants to come out and say it's directly because of AI. So I think you're starting to see labor markets frame it as organizational restructuring. But the large incumbents are starting to shed workers, and I think the data is becoming pretty clear on that as well. But take it back a little bit, is what we're seeing is, of course, AI is actually unbundling a lot of older and mostly Western professionals, law, consulting, translation. For Africa, we're seeing there's actually a much lower risk and across the board. Exclusion from these professions means a lot of less disruption for governments to have to manage massive labor market, what do you call it? Labor market, yeah, movements. So I think there's an opportunity there for AI to actually be a foundation for us to build new systems for new workflows directly. And I talk about Africa having a workflow vacuum, and what do I really mean by a workflow vacuum? Most of our work in Africa, and it's not to say people aren't working hard. I believe they're working hard, but I think the hustle on this continent is beyond anything on comprehension. Like, it's incredible the work that gets done, but what's happening is work gets done, but the loops don't always close. You're seeing in the micro enterprise sector, they're relying on WhatsApp, relying on paper and memory. And so you're seeing a value leak at almost every handoff. These companies, and they're losing incredible amounts of value when they're not following up on orders, they're not, you know, checking up on customers, upselling. There's value leak in all sorts of different kind of platforms on the continent. And so why we're particularly bullish of this sector is AI actually has this role now of being a project manager, and not just an assistant as well. 85% of work on the continent is in the micro enterprise sector. We have to be realistic about this. So we hope with AI it can close the loops, which can unlock a lot more margin, a lot more trust and growth for the sector, and then also kind of act as this observe to plan to act to verify tool as well. And it's our belief, and we hope to see from some of you kind of moving forward as well, that any job tech platform that can show how they own this full loop will ultimately own all the value in the market as well. Couple of things we think about how to stand out to investors. Don't say we're building a task bot. Anyone who's focused on a single task bot is not going to be a winner. You've got to be able to show that you own this workflow end to end, selling full outcomes, not just single tools. And how a lot of investors, and did this presentation a couple of nights ago to the Nairobi Angel Investor Group, success is really going to be measured in how many loops can we close. That's where a lot of the value is going to come for platforms in this space as well. Cool. So I've included a section here. It's nearing the end of this presentation, but it's a challenging one because there's quite a diverse group on the call, of course. But it's really, I wanted to kind of share a couple of thoughts that we've had on how to give your job tech platform some AI superpowers as well. I really like this quote, and I think it just makes us think a little bit differently. It's this theory that AI is enabling labor arbitrage at scale. So you got a lawyer in the US who's making $200,000, and you've got a worker in the Philippines that makes, or in Kenya, making $1,000. But imagine the world that we're going to where AI plus human IQ convergence actually looks more like $20,000, which is a 10x game for the global poor, but a 10x pressure on Western wages. And for those of us that work in the digital workspace, I think this is something we're all building towards as well. We believe a Kenyan or a Nigerian worker is just as qualified, as skilled as their counterpart in the US, but there is a huge disparity in wages. But AI is actually now enabling this convergence. And I think the demand markets will hopefully move in this direction as well, especially in like the outsourcing space. So our kind of working thesis here is AI doesn't just eliminate jobs by default, it eliminates a lot of repetition. It removes the need for employees on your platform to be doing predictable, low trust, very low leverage work. And so we see kind of 4 different areas where AI on platform can be useful and where it can superpower your employees. We can help them on the design and orchestration. It can do supervision and verification, culture and context, trust and relationships. These 4 areas are going to be resilient to AI's impact as well. Cool. I know Brenda's sitting across from me. She shared this great model as well. And I really enjoyed reading it. It's a fantastic piece. I've linked the source in the reading notes, but it's really trying to take back to when we're trying to predict how do we build workforces of the future as founders? How do you build roles that are resilient? And really what you're trying to do is design roles with tasks and workflows that are safe from AI. You want to be, of course, integrating AI where it's going to build efficiencies, but for roles, you want to be moving them basically into what's called the top right bucket, which is roles that are scarce and they're complementary with AI. And those are things, for example, like those that are overseeing multi-agent workflows, prompt engineering, moving away from this world where the skills of your employees are abundant and they're not complementary with AI. Anything like data entry, transcription, customer support. Those are in the most highly risked tasks to be absorbed by by AI in the next 5 years, as well. Of course, you're always going to get non-complementary and scarce tools like crafts and manual trades, and that's great, but those aren't typically what a lot of job tech platforms focus on, as well. So I think if I was a founder sitting in the room, what I would be thinking about is designing roles now in my company around a task and workflow mix. Trying to design around 3 clusters of employee value. You should have AI agents experimenting with AI agents, absorbing all the predictable mechanical steps. But your employee should be then doing 3 things, whether that's upstream, so they're choosing problems, setting constraints, defining qualities, whether they're supervising outputs of AI, verifying and escalating, or whether that's downstream, is converting any of these outputs into action. And I think you should be starting to think about hiring and training around these zones for your employees as well. There's a great article here. Again, I've linked it. We'll share the deck afterwards. I like this one. I'm a reformed management consultant, so I always love a good framework. But it's talking about all the theory is great, but how do you actually drive organizational change? How do you turn your company into an AI superpower? How do you make sure that the culture of the company is rewarding this? And it sets up a very simple framework that I want to talk to you about, because I think it's a very valuable way for platforms to take this forward. Of course, you have leadership, those of us in the room. Your job now is to set the urgency and vision of AI future. You've got to define clearly how AI is going to change jobs. You've got to remove fear. You've got to enable experimentation. You've got to get people in the company sharing this stuff. Then you've got another layer, which is called the crowd, which is effectively the employees. And what we're seeing is workers are already using AI. Like most of the people in your team will be using some version of AI, but often they hide using it. So what we've got to do is normalize the sharing of AI. We've got to create a culture where people are confident in sharing and learning from their colleagues on AI-enabled workflows. And this is all supported by what I recommend we're setting up is a version of what's called the lab. It's a small working group of people who are interested in AI rollouts, who can capture and scale what works. They can then test AI, they can celebrate it, and they can actually then deploy them into the market as well. And it's a very simple framework that enables us to scale AI throughout the company. Yeah, I think there's a couple of founder decisions where we've just stepped into Q4. I think if I was the platform CEO on the room, I would encourage you, let's set an AI default culture. I think every team of yours has to have an AI mandate. By the end of the year, we want to see 3 experiments with AI. And CEOs should not be writing prompts. You've got to hard code these into KPIs. I would recommend you find an AI lead, someone who's young, passionate, driven about this stuff. Make them the AI champion. Make the AI kind of philosophy clear across the company. And start leading by example. And anytime there's an AI win, let's celebrate it internally as well. I think it's critically important. So I think just a quick call to experiment for those on the call. Shared a very quick example of Bolt. There are a million of these platforms as well. Lots of them are free. But I think after this call, I'd like to spend the rest of today spotting one AI workflow that you could experiment for with your platform. We've got a Jobtech guide to Gen AI. There's a couple of examples and use cases in there that can prompt you to think about this stuff, but they're simple experiments. We've got to get started with these things and seeing the results. Tomorrow, ask your co-founders how they are testing AI use cases and start to think about who an AI captain would be. So that Monday morning, we hit the ground running and we're building a real network of Jobtech AI enthusiasts. We've written a Jobtech Gen AI guide. It's a 40-page guide designed for founders, but also for employees to really just get the basics of what a lot of this stuff is. You can skip the foundational stuff if you want to move into the more complex, look at different tools, libraries. We want to find the best content creators on AI. We've got them mapped, just to help everyone kind of get up to speed with what's happening around the world as well. You're starting to see great things like this, like Andreessen Horowitz Apps Unwrapped. Like these are some of the best platforms that a bunch of people at Andreessen Horowitz tested, earlier this year, and they would recommend if we want to start looking at tools to build products, if we want to be creative works, what are some of the most interesting platforms as well, and just really give us simple databases to get rid of that overwhelmed feeling when we're getting a million Google results of different platforms that could be helping us get work done as well. There's a reading list I'll share in the after notes. Yeah, and I think that for the most part is it. I've got this one as well. I'm just going to quickly flash it up before I kind of pause, because I think it's a working one. Like this was the original one. That we've seen, it's pretty simple. I haven't published it or added a database integration, but that would be very simple on Bolt. It's literally a one click to add a database on Supabase. It's not complex. And this is what it would look like. It's a full working marketplace. You can filter by location. You can, you can book Mary. That's definitely not Mary. And it's just, yeah. Yeah. It's, I'm just going to quickly go through this. Um, because why it's wanted us to slightly do it is that's the user journey. They've just booked a service, but it's also an admin dashboard, which all sits here built onto Supabase, which enables, of course, it's simplified, the ability to, as the admin, actually see the bookings that are coming in, confirm them, allocate them, monitor them, all done with a 3-sentence prompt, and a bit of shouting at the LLM to give me a better logo and make the font better. But yeah, and, it's now tracking all the bookings that have come in as well. And I think that changes the game a lot. So I'm actually going to pause here. I notice there's probably a few questions in the chat. But yeah, happy to take
Yeah.
any questions to the best of my ability. I'm non-technical, so please keep that in mind. Yeah. Thank you.
Awesome. Yeah. Thank you. Thanks, Nick, as you sort of like grab a breather. I think in the question in the chat we've seen, yeah, Wanjiku. I said I'm gonna be prioritizing people who put their questions in the chat. Yeah, you talked about, first of all, I think there was a tool component. Obviously there's Bolt, there's Lovable, there are all these tools, and I think the question is like, how would you compare this to Lovable? I'm sure even a lot of people in the room have used these different kinds of tools. Just by a show of hands, has anybody ever used Lovable, um, Bolt, by any chance? Nobody? Hearing them from the first time? Nicholas,
Yes.
Kelvin. Okay, it's yeah. I think those are tools worth really checking out. But to the question, Nick, how would you compare this to Lovable if you've used them?
I mean, I think I mentioned it a little bit earlier. Is it's very hard to compare a lot of these tools. I think what we've got to be doing is understanding the vibe coding is a agentic software development is the future. The tools
Mhm.
don't really matter. It's more so the process. If we get too in love with a Lovable or a Bolt, you'll get left behind because one will run ahead by the other for 6 months and then the next will jump. And it's just we've just got to get familiar that we can be moving and swapping between these tools at will. And we've got to be if we're working in AI to make sure we're always working at the frontier. Um, yeah, very little difference between them currently.
Awesome. Um, and I think the second question that was a little bit different was like the typical, I think the legendary Africa reality question of like, AI seems to be advancing things in the software world, right? But in reality, in Africa, you have to have the offline, then the online component. So I think the question is like, how do you see those two interacting? Yeah, given our reality.
Yeah, I think we talk about it quite a lot in the job tech world. Western job tech platforms typically just match supply and demand and be done with it. Whereas African job tech platforms, we have to build everything underneath for it to work. It's a lot more capital intensive. It's a lot more challenging. Shout out to all the founders in the room. We're building really hard solutions for really hard problems. And I think that's where we're going to start to see a very big difference as well. There is a lot of different, yes, there is on the software side of things, and there is efficiencies on labor markets, sure. Um, but I think when you're looking at a workflow, I think Africans generally exhibit a lot of the behaviors that I think we think in workflows on the continent. You've got people who are, for example, a shop owner and a hustler, or a lot of Kenyans have and Africans have side hustles, because we're very used to thinking in terms of workflows and things, and I think that's going to be a unique advantage on the continent.
Great. I think at this point, I just want to open up to anyone else in the room with a reaction or with a question. Just feel free to like unmute and ask away. Any other question? Yeah, Nicholas, go ahead.
Thank you, Nick, for the presentation. It was good, and it's good motivation because we are all doing the day-to-day business, and sometimes we know that AI is coming, but we are not really taking the lead. So I have appointed Kelvin to be the AI lead for now from my team, which is here. Nick, now I wanted to know, as a point of view, an investor, you were saying that we need to see the loop. So what do you mean by the loop? And as you know a little bit what we are doing, what will you see as a AI superhero to put into our marketplace like us?
Yeah, good question. I'm not sure I can give platform specific advice right now. Yeah. Like it's a lot of it. Pardon? Yeah, maybe an example. So my mind has just gone a little bit blank. There's a horrendous bird screeching outside the window that's really thrown me off. Yeah. Let me get back to you that one, Nicholas. Let me have a quick think about it. Yeah.
Okay. Or do we have, for example, if we know that people have no opportunity to use AI, it's better not to have them on our platform because we know that we are not going to help them to find a job? Or do we have to select only people who use AI? So that's a decision we have to take to have only the workforce of tomorrow.
Yeah, I mean, I think it would be very strange to be hiring for roles in 2025 at the end of where we are that aren't human plus AI. I'd be very wary of that. I'm speaking personally here. I'd be scared if someone was not using AI today to superpower their job and enable them to deliver outsized benefits to their employer. Yeah.
Awesome. I
Thanks.
think Vivens, yeah, you're next. Go ahead.
I think, yeah, thanks, Nick, for, great and insightful, I would not call it a presentation, but a workshop. So, yeah, I think from our side, I would say that as well, there are a lot of steps we are taking, right, in terms of embedding the AI actually, first of all, across the platform to ensure that maybe we increase the efficiency and even the speed. So, about what we have been analyzing is that at some point, AI kind of infrastructure is not affordable, especially when you are building a startup. And at the end of the day, maybe we might have a certain kind of agency or even a chatbot, and we actually end up not probably releasing it to thousands of users because we know that it's going to consumers a lot, while probably it can't convert, the return on investment. And I wanted to ask you from either that product angle and even from an investor point of view, how do we actually have to balance that? We know that there is a big value to our users, right? But return on investment, even comparing it to the cost, it's not that easy. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, you raise a very good point. And I think, yeah, it's easy, I suppose, for me to say, try out all these tools. Of course, they have a cost. And I think we have to be realistic about those things. I know, Moigai, maybe you just wanted to jump in because I think at the Nigeria Mixer, you had an example of someone who noticed their bills spiraling overnight when they left something open.
Yeah, I actually posted this on the group. I think it was William from ProDevs. That's a Nigerian company, recruitment sort of like company. And they've been testing it out. They were testing out an AI like in a use case of like crawling the web for like jobs. And I believe they used one tool and basically they ended up spending, I think, north of like almost like 2,000. It was a crazy amount of money just experimenting. So there are definitely like checks and balances and ways in which you can safely test and affordably test some of these tools. So he would be probably a really good guy to like reach out to, William, just to be able to get a bit of an idea of how you can test out without spending everything you have. Yeah, so that's just my quick reaction to it. Awesome. I think because of
Would you
time,
mind if I also interject there a little bit?
okay, go ahead.
So from experience, what I've seen is that sometimes AI creates value and that value is directed to one of the parties. It's either an internal value or it creates value for the customer, right? Most times when it's an internal value, it means that it's saving you money in a way, or it's giving you something you did not have before. Like the example you just gave, which is like giving access to like jobs that a company would have spent money to also find. Then you should look at the given how that balances out with what you're spending to get that. If you have an alternative means to like acquire the same number of jobs for lesser, obviously you should work with the alternative. But if the AI gives you that solution for lesser, then you should switch and use the AI for what you're doing. But in the case of external value to the customer, a very good example is Intercom. In the very early days, Intercom had to begin testing out new pricing models for like, can we add points for people to purchase points in order for them to use Fin, which was what they called their AI at the time, on their platform. And while there was the standard subscription model, they also had to add an additional pricing model that also allows people to use AI points to essentially help also answer queries on their platform. So you have to look at it from the standpoint of who the AI is creating value for and how it makes sense to integrate it into the platform and then get value to the person and also capture value in return. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, totally.
Certainly does.
Yeah,
Great, thank you.
thank
Yeah,
you.
really good. Sadiq?
Sadiq, yeah, you can close off with Sadiq. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Nick. Really insightful presentation. So I just wanted to sort of, it's pretty much just throwing out there to like most of the African founders. I think we're talking in the context of like using AI as African founders. because at the core of it, AI relies on data, right? The ability to compute large sets of data to produce new knowledge. But unfortunately, even from your presentation, when you're doing the poor talk, at the poor walk rather, we noticed that what's being generated is not African. Okay, so there's that risk, right? Like we are building for Africans, we're in Africa, but then we're relying on foreign LLMs and foreign platforms to sort of build for Africa. So that's where there's the conflict, right? Because it's not really the way I see Africa's growth in tech is like making a quantum leap, right? Trying to sort of avoid some of the steps, unnecessary steps. And I think AI presents that opportunity where we can avoid most of the workflows which are not really relevant and just get to like results. Because most of the markets, the clients that we are trying to sort of approach are actually SMEs, and they want like quick results. You know, they don't have time to like go through guidelines and all that. So where do we sit when we don't have like African native LLMs? We don't have African native tools that really understand the context. And the worst part is that these LLMs are not built on African data. Where do we sit? I mean, that's just a question.
Yeah, it's a good question. It's something we could do a whole another hour talk on as well. You know, like it's the biggest existential risk to Africa as well with AI sovereignty. Like there needs to be a lot more local investment, a lot more local infrastructure, a lot more, you know, local data capture as well. And we're starting to see the early signs of it popping up. You're starting to see interesting platforms going out of South Africa, Nigeria, Ghana, but nowhere near enough. But it's going to be a super challenging and interesting world. I certainly don't have the answers of how we do this, but I think you raise an interesting point is, yeah, well, we're able, hopefully, and that's my belief and my kind of where I'm putting my hopes on the continent, is being able to skip a lot of these kind of older steps that Western markets are more ingrained into. And these solutions we do can build workflows straight at the source, and that's kind of my bullishness on the platform. I also have a very bearish outlook as well. Depends how I wake up in the morning. Yeah.
Great.
Thanks.
I think
Ask the last one kindly.
all right. There we go. Absolute last though.
Sorry guys, I'm in a dark space. I also have some kind of skin, so you guys can't see me. Am I loud enough?
I can hear you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I just wanted to ask Nick, based on what we are saying, and I see you even say that looking at the future of AI, it can build right code and ensure that it even deploys end to end. As we talk about 2025, do you think the role of the junior developer is vanishing? Is there a need now, as of today, for a company to hire a junior developer?
Yeah, it's a good question, and I think it raises two things. I think we're starting from the data that we're seeing in the US, because that's where labor market data is easily accessible, and that's where a lot of this stuff comes. So yeah, like entry-level jobs are not happening anymore. So that's kind of one sign. But then I think then there's another sign which I didn't talk about and I wanted to, but when you look at driving change in your platform or in companies, who do you want doing it? Do you want a 50-year-old manager who's just got ChatGPT? No, you want an AI native junior. You want someone. So we want to be making sure that we're still hiring AI superpower juniors. Like they understand AI at its core. They understand AI as an infrastructure play. You want them to be the ones leading these projects. So I think companies that don't hire entry-level people are actually at risk of isolating themselves and not bringing the right people in to really lead AI projects. So it's a really complex one. I think that's why it's so important for us to Jobtech Alliance and the wider ecosystem to make sure platforms are building and offering talent to the global world. That is where the demand is going, if that makes sense. Which is a really complex and hard piece, and it's constantly trying to catch up, keep up, predict. And there's never a right answer, but we're trying our best, I think.
Thank you.
Awesome. All right. Thanks a lot. I think for the session, it's not quite been a micro session, but I think just thinking about one of the slides that Nick was talking about is like, this is it, right? Yeah, this is what we should really be like focusing on, eating and breathing AI, because the folks who figure it out, who integrate AI into their workflows will be the winners. So we really hope that this session has been helpful to spark a thought, an idea, something that you can test out tomorrow. So a very big thank you to Nick for, sharing out his insights. He spends quite a lot of time reading AI materials, so I can assure you some of the things he shared today are, top of the batch, right? In the chat, I've shared with you just a feedback form. Like I was saying, these micro sessions are new to us. We want to see whether they are being of value to you as a community. So please just take 10 seconds. Open the link. Just give us feedback. What would you like to see next post this? Because we can never quite talk about AI fully in one session. Just let us know. And I think your ideas and thoughts will really help us keep growing our events. But with that said, let me just bring this to a close and thank every one of you for coming, sparing 1 hour of your time to be with us. Really appreciate it, and really hope to see you in the next one.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Solomon. Yeah, thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Appreciate it. Bye-bye.